I got... Where's your lab coat? Friends, we're about to go to science. You need your lab coat. We're gonna go be scientists. You need your lab coat. It's okay. It's okay. Just make sure you get your lab coats on before we get to the experiment. And welcome back, third grade, to another video in our science lab, our virtual science lab. So, last week you learned all about rocks. Well, I feel like we should give them a name. I'm going to leave a form for you to name our rock, and me and the rest of the third grade teachers will find the best name for our rock. Out of all of your submissions, we're going to go through them. We're going to pick the name we like the best for our rock. Yeah, they need a name. So, last week you learned all about rocks and weathering. Who can tell me what weathering is? Whisper it in my ear. I don't want anyone else to hear your answer. Let me hear. A little louder. You gotta whisper louder. I can't hear you. That's exactly what it is. That I can just tell that you said weathering was when rocks break down into smaller pieces. I know you said it. You were whispering a little low, so I couldn't hear you completely, but I know that's what you said because you're a genius. So, this week we're going to learn about a process that's super similar to weathering, and it is called erosion. This should sound familiar to all of you. This week we're going to learn about erosion. We're going to find the difference between erosion and weathering. Your objective for the end of this lesson is to be able to describe and observe how landforms are changed by the process of rock particles being moved by force. So we're going to dive deeper into what that means now. Let's go. So, as mentioned before, you're going to learn all about erosion today. Your objective is to be able to describe and observe how landforms are changed by the process of rock pieces being moved by different forces. Let's first go over some vocabulary you may want to know before watching this video. First, we have a particle. The word particle means a tiny amount of something. Next, you will see the word weathering used a lot in this video. You should already know what this means, but if you need a refresher, weathering is a process in which rocks are broken down into smaller pieces. This happens due to water, animals, plants, and weather. Before we go into erosion, let's quickly look into what a landform is. A landform is a part of the Earth's surface that has a certain type of shape, and it forms naturally. You can tell landforms apart by their shape. Examples of landforms are canyons, mountains, and valleys. Notice that each landform looks different from the next. Alright, kings and queens, the moment you've been waiting for, erosion! Woo! So, what is erosion? Well, weathering weakens rock and makes it fall into smaller pieces. Erosion happens when those pieces of rocks are picked up and moved to another place. This happens by different forces, such as ice, water, wind, and gravity. Let's take a think break. How are weathering and erosion different? So, weathering is the process that actually weakens the rock. It's what makes the rock break into these smaller pieces. Erosion occurs when these pieces are then carried away by things like wind and water. So, the weathering breaks it and the erosion takes it. Guys, I'm going for a walk and I'm going to take you with me to see if we can find any examples of erosion around us. Let's go.
coming on that walk with me. But let's stop and think. Did you see any of the examples of erosion on our nature walk? Now, pause this video, go to your experiment observation worksheet, and write the answer you thought of as an example of erosion you saw on the nature walk.
Oh, wait, wait. We're at the experiment now, so like if you don't have your lab coat on, if you got like some safety goggles, maybe put them on. You might want to put them on now, right? Because we're at the experiment part, and even though you're watching me, like you're in the science lab with me, and science labs are dangerous. Just put your lab coat on, all right, guys. Just put them on. I know they look silly. They don't really match with like my outfit. It's fine. Put your lab coats on. Safety first. Put them on.
Okay, now that you have your lab coats on, let's move on to the materials you'll see me using in this experiment. I'll be using flour, ground coffee, a small bowl, a spray bottle filled with water, a straw, and some sort of flat surface. For my experiment, I just used a tray, but if you have a different flat surface you would like to use, if you try to recreate this experiment, that is fine. Step 1 of the experiment, you're going to place the flour in a small bowl. Once the flour really takes the shape of the bowl, when you flip it over, for the most part, the flour should still stay in the shape of the bowl. As you're going to see me do in the next clip, you're going to flip the bowl over on the flat surface. As you can see, when I placed the flour and took the bowl off, it didn't 100% keep the shape of the bowl, but that is okay because we can just use those pieces that have fallen off as examples of weathered rock that break into smaller pieces. For step 2, we're going to use our straw as wind and gently blow onto the flour hill. So when I was doing this experiment, as you're going to see, the first time I blew onto it, I blew a little bit too hard and got flour everywhere. If you're going to recreate this experiment, please make sure you are blowing gently, and that will be enough to show you the difference. This picture shows the hill before we blew on it. Take a few moments to really observe the shape of the hill. Now this is the hill after the wind blew on it. What differences do you notice? Again, take a few seconds to really think to yourself, what differences did you notice on the hill after the wind blew it, and how can you relate that to erosion? Please take a few moments and pause this video so you can write down the differences you observed on your observation sheet. Okay, now we're going to move on to our second experiment. The first step for our next experiment is to pour the coffee into a small bowl and gently flip the bowl over on the flat surface. I didn't record myself doing this because you already saw me do it with the flour. Next, you want to use the spray bottle filled with water to spritz on the coffee plateau. This is our coffee landform before it was hit by a storm. This was our landform before it was hit by the heavy rain. Try and focus in on the landform and not all the scattered dirt around it. Take a second and think. What differences did you notice on the plateau after the rainstorm hit? Pause this video and go back to really look at those pictures and make your observations. Then go to our experiment observation sheet and fill it out. Remember, weathering breaks it, but erosion takes it. Weathering makes rocks really weak and makes them break apart. Erosion is the process in which those broken rocks and those broken pieces or those weak pieces are moved around by water and wind. In our experiment, we got to see parts of loose flour or loose coffee get moved around by water and wind. I hope you enjoyed this virtual science experiment and good luck on your week's work. Have a great day, guys.